about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So everybody's excited the World Cup is coming. I think the FIFA World Cup is going to be wonderful. Am I getting tickets? Nope. Not after the Olympics fiasco. Trying to get tickets for the Olympics, they were ridiculously expensive. I'm hearing the hotels are going to be even worse. It's going to cost me thousands upon thousands of dollars to see an event that isn't even a final. I wouldn't even be able to be there when Americans are competing. So I said, I'll pass. Well, apparently some people are feeling that same way as it pertains to the FIFA World Cup. They say the ticket prices are now dropping below $100 on a resale website because there is just flailing demand as people are just really worried about what, shall we say, their bottom line is going to be. They say tickets for the Jordan versus Algeria game in San Francisco, which could be a really good game, on June 22nd, that started at $98. And I don't think people are trying to suck up as many tickets for that. The World Cup is being hosted by the United States, Mexico, and Canada. It begins next month. Now, according to ticket data, they say the average price for the cheapest World Cup group stage game tickets on resale markets is $559. Now, for any of us who want to go to Super Bowl, $559 is cheap. It's a deal, but it's not cheap for those of us that don't want to spend for one single ticket. That's the base rate. FIFA's president Gianni Infantino has likened the interest in the competition to 1,000 years of World Cups at once. They said there have been multiple signs of sluggish demand, including low hotel and hospitality bookings. They say one of the major reasons cited for this is the ticket prices for games and also the surrounding hotels, because everybody's going to be jacking up their price. They say FIFA price tickets are too high for all 104 games, complete disaster. They will be forced to drop them all greatly in the next 30 days. So for those of you that are looking to possibly get a ticket, Ticket Talk host Scott Friedman told Newsweek they may be dropping soon. So something to look for. I also have noticed, having gone to games myself, I love the idea of going to a game. It's exciting. When I would watch the Runnin' Rebels in the 90s, basketball team, going to the games were exciting. But if you, like me, really want to see the basket and you really want to see the close-up, TV's better. I hate to say that. I noticed that back in the 90s. I'm like, look, I love going to the tailgates. I love going to the parties. I love saying I was there. I love supporting the team. But I'm like, I want to watch the replay on TV because I'm missing things. Same thing with football. When I'm at a football game, you could hardly see. I mean, it's nice because you could see the whole field, and same thing with hockey. And you could in fact, higher up you see even more than when you're down by the sideline. So I almost think the cheaper seats, not just because cheaper, you get to see more. But I noticed my neck was hurting. There was nothing happening because I was near the goalpost for this was, I think, a UNLV game, and nothing was happening. We were losing. It was against Boise State about a year or two ago, and so it's not as comfortable. So when somebody's thinking to themselves, I'm going to get stuck in parking, I'm going to have to pay for parking, I'm going to have to pay for hotels, just to say I was there at one of the games, and it's not the Super Bowl or the championship of the FIFA Cup, people start to go, you know what? I'm going to start to rethink. When F1 comes here, it's only for a few days. So there's not a lot of opportunity for people to go and get there. But, I mean, there's a lot of games, that are coming up with. And so I think, you're going to try to sell tickets starting at $559, not going to work. Interesting, you're going to be hearing this term blue dot fever. Blue dot fever apparently is causing multiple musicians to cancel their shows. Even Kiefer Sutherland is, I guess, the latest victim to blue dot fever. Blue dot fever is not a virus. It's not an infectious disease. But blue dot fever is where when you go to book a seat on Ticketmaster or StubHub, you see all these blue dots, right, of seats available. And the more blue dots that are there, that shows the fewer people buying. And so, unfortunately, if there's not a lot of demand and you have an empty venue, you don't want to perform. Interestingly, when we saw Salvatore Maniscalco, the comedian, we were sitting, I got seats. They were kind of expensive. They were, in the orchestra seating, but in the back. So they were cheap enough, but I was still, not at nosebleed seats. And luckily, the maitre d' either knew who we were or whatever, but he asked us to come with him, and then he sat us in the third row. Why? Well, the third row was empty. Nobody bought those seats. And it looked bad having empty seats. So when you watch these comedy tours or you watch these shows or concerts, they make sure they put people up front. When I saw Kelly Clarkson years ago, they moved me closer to the front to fill up any empty seats. Now, she's fantastic. I would never expect there to be any empty seats. But nobody wants empty seats, so they call that blue dot fever. Kiefer Sutherland is promoting his fourth studio album, Gray. Now, I didn't know that he's performing music or what. I don't think anybody knows. But he said, with great disappointment, I'm going to have to cancel the U.S. leg of my tour due to very low ticket sales. He said, I don't think it's fair to the people who bought tickets or the venues to play to half-empty houses. Now, that was pretty stand-up of him to admit it. He said, I look forward to touring the United States again at a more suitable time. I hope you understand. See, interestingly, we always hear of people canceling. Well, they're sick, or they're having personal issues, or they're having health issues. And then you just hear the thing, and you're like, gosh, are they sick? Are they sick? What's really going on? Well, now I assume it's low ticket sales. And so, and the other issue I have is anytime I do buy on StubHub, Ticketmaster, whatever, the fees are ridiculous. You're like, I'm getting $125 tickets. But by the time you're done buying 2 tickets, you're spending $600. And you're like, what? Well, we suffer, I guess, from blue dot fever then, too. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell our listeners who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me join you to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now and find out how much your case is potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. If you think you deserve compensation, call now to find out how much you qualify for. 800-710-5100.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Hot Shot Secret Stiction Eliminator.
Stiction, that sticky friction, undermines the performance of diesel engines. Third-party ASTM testing verifies that Stiction Eliminator removes 2 times as much stiction than any alternative on the retail shelf. Stiction Eliminator is formulated to be left in the engine oil. It works as you drive.
Available at truck stops, Tractor Supply, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and online at HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret. Powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians, only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Jason, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Daliah with Dr. spelled out. Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So open marriages are on the rise. More people are looking at that as, okay, I'm not a fan. But you're going to hear a lot about that as Bonnie Bartlett, and there's a couple, a Hollywood couple, William Daniels and Bonnie Bartlett. I think William Daniels, very famous. We've seen him in multiple movies there. I guess that couple, they're in their 90s now. They've been celebrating their 75th wedding anniversary. And the secret to their happy marriage is it's open. An open marriage means they have relationships with other people. Okay, that then to me is not necessarily a marriage. I'm not judging. It's just I've had many patients who were involved in swinging and open marriages and things like that, and it never seemed to work out. I know it's working out for this Hollywood couple, but I would not necessarily consider that. It really is about what you look at, what a marriage is. You know, why are you married? What is the marriage for? If the marriage is for fidelity and for monogamy, well then, yeah, you don't want it open. But if the marriage is for financial reasons, well, I need a partner and I don't want to live alone, I think you're seeing people start to take things to other levels. I believe the incidence of open marriages is now up to 7%. Now, I didn't study that myself, so I can't say with definition if it's only 7%, if not more. In terms of the number of people cheating, there has been a statistic saying 20% have admitted to extramarital affairs. But that's only 20%. I think that's even higher. And so what I'm kind of surmising is we're having an underestimation of what's really happening in marriages and this sort of discussion of, are these marriages lasting longer if there's wiggle room? Now, I think the best way to kill a marriage is cheating on somebody. That's not, to me. Yeah, but what if both parties are into it? What if both parties go, there's a firefighter I met. I'd just like to see what a couple weekends are like with him. You good? Yeah. I'm going to go see a stripper. All right. Let's meet back 2 weeks. High five. I mean, maybe some people are doing that. I don't know how the conversation, comes into play. I've had friends who engaged in swinging activities. I don't understand that. How do you find a couple where they're both good looking? I mean, how, where you really want to be with that person and they want, that's just the odds. But why is there this demand? Is it that, and we need to speak about this scientifically, is it that monogamy is not in our basic instinct, our humanistic evolutionary instinct? There's a lot of animals out there that are monogamous, but it's rare. The majority of animals in the animal kingdom try to have as many partners as possible. And I've seen this with humans. I've seen this with my friends. They can't just be with one person. They just can't be interested in one person. They have to be interested in multiple. And you look at them and you're like, is that what nature wants so that they propagate? If you really look at a scientific standpoint, in science, they want the male animal to be able to propagate and be interested in multiple partners. Because if they find a partner that's infertile, that doesn't help allow that lineage to move forward. So if he finds another partner and is able to have babies with them, then it gives rise to Ishmael and Isaac. Amazing Bible story, sad, where Hagar and Ishmael were sent away when Sarah finally got pregnant with Isaac, and she's like, you can't have another woman, another kid in the house. So it was it, and then now we have a big rift between the descendants of Ishmael and the descendants of Isaac, because the women couldn't get along. It's not easy. But if you go back to the Bible, women, multiple wives and the polygamy that happened, doesn't always work. If you love somebody, you want to be the apple of their eye. You want to be their only one. You don't want to think that person could leave. So for those individuals who go, yeah, the open marriage works, I go, well, what happens if they decide that one of the people they're open with, they'd really rather grow old with? Now you're stuck. Do you really want to introduce that sort of variability into your marriage? And I know somebody would say, but Dr. Daliah, don't be naive. If somebody's going to cheat, they're going to cheat, whether you guys have rules or not. I just fear with the open marriage concept that you are actually inviting somebody else into your family, into your bed. I mean, if you have kids, you have, people always ask, how did Corey and I last? We're going to be hitting 30 years of marriage. 30 years. How did we last? Well, one is we're on the same page with a lot of things. Two is we rarely fight. I mean, we already got through most of the drama year 1 and 2. And so we already know what ticks each other off. And we are also, for me, especially, I pick my fights. If there's something he does that I don't like, not the biggest deal. Seats up, soaking bread in the tub or the sink. If I smell cigar smoke, I don't care. And I'm not, I'm only going to sweat the big stuff. And luckily, there's really no big stuff. So we don't really have many fights. So we're able to get along. But one big thing when things were really dramatic in our first couple years of marriage is I don't want anybody else raising my kid. If I decide to leave or he decides to leave, now you're introducing somebody else for your kids. I mean, one story that really frightens the hell out of me was that cruise. I believe it was off of Florida or the Caribbean, where the stepbrother kills the stepsister. They had to share a room, a cabin on the ship because the dad remarried a new woman. The family's blended. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen with every family, but do your kids want a stranger as a sibling that they now have to sleep with and shower in the same room? And unfortunately, this person allegedly was pretty creepy, was found to be on top of her. The boyfriend found him being inappropriate with her. And then now she's found dead, suffocated. And the suspect is the stepbrother. So for me, it was, you introduce anybody else into the family, that, now other family members are affected. And that's not cool. I mean, now if the whole family's a part of it and the kids are fine, like, Mom, we know you have a thing for firefighters. Go right ahead. You have her blessing. Okay, maybe that's okay. But I know my boys would not. My boys would not want me to have a firefighter come to the house. I say, guys, sorry, it's our open night. That would be fun, though. But no need. So, when you're going to start to hear people say, well, that's why in Hollywood, I don't know what they do in Hollywood. Remember, in Hollywood, the rich, they have security, they have butlers, they just don't live the typical lifestyle that we all do. And so if they're like, oh yeah, that, we live, gosh, a lot of people, they sleep in separate bedrooms, and so they do whatever. But, you have a lot of marriages that I really don't think are together for love. I think they're together for business, or I think for convenience. And so when those individuals go off and have their own little relationships, side relationships, if two people are okay with it, that's their business. But if you have somebody that's not okay with it, they don't want the STDs, and they don't want, now, I do understand there's a lot of couples that have sexless marriages. And they're like, look, I want to be with you. I don't want to abandon you, but I need love. I need intimacy. And I do think some of those relationships, maybe go do what you do. Just make sure you come back home and you're here. And there are some individuals that really stay put with their family, despite them cheating. My concern is I've seen too many people cheat where they go off with the new person. And I just wouldn't be comfortable with that. And so, I would tell Corey, if that's what you want, go now. This way I could go find my firefighter or whatever. 1-877-DOCDALI, 1-877-DOCDALI. I got to tell you, relationships, you would think they would be more cut and dry, and they're not. They're not, and it's not easy. When you see, couples, I actually had, I think it was my great grandparents that slept in separate rooms, and my mom said they didn't love each other. They stayed married, but they were in separate rooms. But we think one of them went and had, females on the side, so I'm not here to judge, but I understand that a relationship lasting 75 years, a relationship lasting 30 years, it's not easy. It's not easy. The key to my marriage was pick your fights. Now, don't fight about everything. Make sure you love each other before you marry each other. Make sure you guys are best friends. Being friends first is crucial. 1-877-DOC.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's Medi-Share. Maybe you've heard switching to Medi-Share to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for Medi-Share is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. Medi-Share works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Back on Dr. Dalia's show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. So people go back and forth. How many steps a day? What should I do to work out? 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And it keeps changing. You keep hearing these different, shall we say, experts say, we studied this, and this is what we think is the most scientific way to lose weight. One of the latest studies from Science Daily is, according to the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, you may not need hours at the gym, just 30 minutes of high-intensity exercise per week. Just 30 minutes a week divided by 7. That's 4 to 5 minutes a day, they're saying, is enough. They said it could dramatically improve cardiovascular fitness, lower the risk of dozens of diseases, and help protect your brain. The key isn't how long you exercise, just how hard you push yourself. So I've heard this, where the more intense, the better. On the other end, I've had people die on the treadmill, have a heart attack on the treadmill. And so we got to be really, really careful with who's doing the intense workouts and who's not. And the reason why we have this back and forth is it's different strokes for different folks. So, I'm a physician. I've seen it all. You've had some people where they're like, I can't get to the gym 150 minutes a week, which is now the latest recommendation. Put in 150 minutes a week. You could split it up throughout the week. You could do it all in one day. Just try to get, to that amount of moderate to vigorous exercise in. And some people are like, I can't do it, so I'm just doing none of it. So these physicians and these public health officials are like, look, just get a couple minutes in. We'll take anything. Anything. Just get a couple minutes in. And I respect that because, at least you're doing something. It's a shame because this wasn't an issue in caveman days because you had to hunt and gather for your food. You had to chase after the kids. You didn't have playpens. You had to go and fish. You ran outside and played. You had to build your hut. So you moved. And then before the Industrial Revolution, you would be farming, or you would walk to where you needed to go, and then with the advent of trains and then cars and buses and all that, now some people barely have any walking or any commute. Some of us, the walk to our car, and then the walk from the parking lot to the building is all the exercise we get. That's a problem. our physical activity is ridiculous. And so when I hear 150 minutes a week, I'm like, that's all? We should be moving every single day. But we're on our computers, or we're watching Netflix, or we're watching, our videos, or we're scrolling. Why aren't we walking when we're reading? Why aren't we walking when we're scrolling? When you're listening to music, why are you sitting listening to music? Why not walking? And so we need to move more. But with that, if you are walking a lot more, that counts. It counts. I know you might not be running on a treadmill, but we'll take it. If you're moving and you're walking more, which is why the pedometers became so popular in the 1960s when I believe Japan was hosting the Olympics. There was a company trying to sell their pedometers, and they came up with a random, you need 10,000 steps a day. Now, mind you, the Japanese people at the time in the 60s were very thin. So 10,000 steps a day, I like that number. It's a nice round number. Some people can't get to 10,000 a day. But if you can't get to 10,000 a day, you can't get to 8,000 a day, you can't get to 5,000 a day, it's suggesting you're not moving. And if you're not moving, you're more prone to blood clots. You're more prone to obesity. You're more prone to cancer. You're more prone to clots. So I don't mind the numbers. I know there's been some science now looking at you only need 8,000 a day, or you only need... No, the more you can move, the better. But the vigorous exercise, okay, the reason why vigorous exercise is coming more into play, because I remember, I was at my most fit when I ran. No doubt about it. But I can't run like I used to. My knees are shot from all the skiing and all the running. It's hotter outside. It's not as safe. The neighborhoods I used to run in, I would not do now. They weren't safe then, and they're definitely not safe now. And so I don't run anymore. Yeah, and I do kind of miss it because I was at my most fit, and I liked running. I really did. I had great music. Of course, it was 90s music and stuff, but I had good music. I had my Walkman, and I was able to run and get a good workout in. And so you do, when you do cardio and but we also have found that if you're not building up your muscle, you're not going to build up your metabolism. You're not going to strengthen your bones. So not only is cardio important, but you need to also build up your muscle. I think some of the best workouts are when you alternate. You do cardio one day, muscle the next, or you do a little cardio and muscle every day. But we should be exercising every single day. None of this wait till the weekend. None of this. And so now that you're hearing, these professionals say, well, why don't you work out a couple minutes a day? That's intense. Get it over with, even if it's running in place. Now, at least you're getting something in and you're moving every day. But when you look at 24 hours, let's say you're sleeping for 7, 8, 9 of them, and then you're only working out 4 minutes. Come on. We really need to move more. But the intense workouts can be troublesome if you have artery clogging and if you're not healthy. And I understand a lot of people every January, after drinking and eating so much, they end up going, okay, I am going to hit the Peloton hard. You got to be careful with that, because if you aren't conditioned, now you could restrict your blood vessels. Now, we should never be in a position where we're afraid to work out because of our hearts. Get your heart checked. But, when that doctor got sued because that person cheated on his wife in a menage a trois, he was in his 30s, and he dropped dead of a heart attack. And then the doctor got sued by the wife, saying, you should have told him not to have sex. She won $1 million, by the way. He had to pay out $1 million to the wife because his patient cheated on her. And he set up a stress test for him and all that because he was having some chest pain. But the initial test didn't look like there was anything severe or acute going on. But apparently, in the middle of sex, it was enough to constrict the vessel or cause a plaque tear, and he ends up dying. Now, I'm not saying if you have sex that's going to happen, but we should always be examining our heart, making sure we don't have artery clogging so that we, can ensure that we're being, as healthy as we can in case we do have to increase our level of exercise. Let's say, God forbid, there's a shooter and you want to run. Don't you want to know you could run? It's pretty important. So for those of you that really want to get more intense, make sure you've had an EKG, you've talked to your doctor. If you have any cardiac risk factors, male over 40, female over 50, smoker, history of alcohol, history of sedentary lifestyle, history of family history of heart disease, high cholesterol, diabetes, high blood pressure, any of the above. If you have more than one risk factor, you should get your hearts checked. Bar none. And then ask them what activity can you do. And when you do get a cardiac exam, they'll ultrasound you oftentimes to make sure that you don't have cardiomyopathy or anything that could cause a sudden cardiac event with exercise, and they'll do a stress test. And you could have the stress test where you're running on a treadmill or the stress test where you're sitting down, where they increase the heart rate and they see if you're starting to have any fixed defect or reversible defect. A reversible defect is more concerning than a fixed defect, believe it or not, because that means when your artery is constricting, you could then cut off blood supply and then be at risk for a heart attack. It's fantastic what we're able to do. And we can even do CT scoring, where we do a CAT scan and check your how calcified your arteries are. And then we also have angiograms and other things to make sure that your lumens are nice and open of your blood vessels. So exercise is important. I would not recommend anybody do anything intense until your doctor clears you and your medical provider clears you. But if you want to start walking and getting out there, as long as your medical provider doesn't have an issue with that, keep moving, whether it's 5,000 steps a day, 10,000 steps. Just get off your ass. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-910-7500. That's 800-910-7500. Call now to find out how much your case could be worth.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
Back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So, Iran, and trying to deal with Iran is like, dealing with a bunch of preschoolers, where they'll tell you something and then they'll forget 2 seconds later, and then you'll say, but you just said this. They go, say what? I mean, it's Iran. And the regime, which doesn't have any cohesion right now, and is the good majority of them are terrorists, not the easiest people to negotiate with. And Trump is saying now the clock is ticking because what Iran is doing, which we've all guessed that they were doing, was let's stall. Let's stall until Europe puts pressure on Trump. The War Powers Act limits Trump's ability. Let's just stall. And the fact that they have been able to last this long was, I think, underestimated. Now, I do believe that the American military, as well as the Israelis, were able to do some great damage to their military and to the regime. But what was the hope was that the freed Iranians were going to be able to take over, put in a new government, etc. The problem is they were never able to coalesce, form, plan, because the Iran regime was so deadly. Same thing with Hamas. We want Hamas out of Gaza and the Gazans to not be ruled by Hamas, because Israel doesn't rule Gaza, Hamas does. But even if Hamas goes, did the Gazans and the Palestinians, have a government ready to go? Well, with Iran, they don't. I believe we thought that the Kurds would come in and help. We gave them, weaponry and all that, but then Turkey was unhappy about that. And so I think we just told the Kurds to just keep the weapons for now. And so this hasn't gone as smooth as it needs to be. And the blockade is making some headway because Iran is producing oil. And if they can't store the oil, they have to then stop production, and stopping production is not easy to turn back on, like we saw with the COVID lockdowns. Locking down was a split-second decision that everybody seemed to follow and jump on, but then trying to reopen, it took months. Still, we can't get people back to work after a lockdown that happened 5.5 years ago, or 5 years ago. That's where we're at. 6 years ago, actually. So Iran has made a new proposal for a deal to definitively end the war in the Middle East. Whether we can trust it or not, who knows? But apparently this is some breaking news. The ceasefire has paused most of the violence now for 6 weeks. It also kind of put Congress now in a position where they can't really go after Trump for a war extending too long. Because if there's a ceasefire, there's no war. So there's no attacks, there's no... And I like the idea of the blockade in terms of, since that's something that Iran was already doing. And so, you get a taste of your own medicine. And the world can see how Iran has has too much control over the Strait of Hormuz and the ability to ship oil. China needs oil from Iran, and Iran is going to maybe try to send it through trains and use the rail system. But if they don't know how to, if they can't unload their oil and they have to stop production, that could damage their machinery and equipment and also damage their future oil issues. Unfortunately, the Iranian people, even though they can't stand the regime, are starting to really struggle for the financial impacts of that. And so we got to move quickly. And what was the plan, it still doesn't, even though, part of the plan wanted to play, we still don't have a new regime in Iran, somebody we could work with that's democratic, somebody that's not going to kill and rape their own citizens, and somebody who's not going to threaten America and Israel and Europe and everybody else with nuclear warheads. So the ceasefire has paused most of the violence now for 6 weeks, according to The Guardian. There has been concerns that the resumption of hostilities is going to be imminent if Iran doesn't, work with America to, give them all their nuclear capabilities and not, promise to not have a nuclear weapon and to do regime change. Pakistan has mediated the discussions, and they have shared with the U.S. a new Iranian proposal. If you remember correctly, Iran's original proposal was reparations. We get to have a nuclear weapon. You guys pay us back for everything that happened. And the U.S. is like, no. So I don't have high hopes that the Iran plan is anything along the same lines as what the U.S. and Israel needs. But a Pakistani source appeared kind of pessimistic, saying that Tehran and Washington keep changing their goalposts, and that's why they can't find a new agreement. changing goalposts and negotiating are two different things. Now, I mean, America does not want Iran to have nuclear capabilities ever. That's what Trump wants. Will they compromise and allow them in 30 years? I doubt that. But that's what Iran's going to try to negotiate. Well, what we'll do is we won't do anything for 5 years or 10 years. The problem is any Iran deal, look with Obama. We let them get more powerful under Obama. And they have been funding war, funding terror. I want to see the Ukraine-Russia conflict end. It will end if Iran can't help Russia. And we're already seeing Russia talk about an end is in sight. So the world knows that the current Iran regime has to be dealt with. It's just they don't know what to do when their voters are upset about the oil prices and the gas prices. And then there's going to be supply chain issues and there's going to be other things. And unfortunately, when Trump says gas prices are going to be back down during the summer, I don't believe so. I want that to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen. People are going to be grumpy. They'll go into the midterms, and then the Democrats are going to take over as predicted. So this is something's got to move. So unfortunately, with this clock ticking, if Iran still tries to kind of kick the can down the road, the U.S. is threatening to go back militarily, wise, and I don't know if that's necessarily a good move. It's not very popular to use troops on the ground. It's not very popular to resume hostilities and artillery and things like that. However, this Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has got to go. And they want to still run the Strait of Hormuz. They still want to hold that Persian Gulf and hold that whole area when it's basically an international waterway. And if they really did put mines and bombs, and if they really have been trying to blockade and they've been firing on ships, they got to go. And I'm really surprised that Europe and other countries are not jumping in. I understand Trump gave mixed messaging. When France said they were sending a battleship, and when the UK said they would help, he's like, oh, okay, now you're going to help. We don't need your one ship. We don't need you. And I understand, he was pretty snarky about it. But then he keeps saying Europe needs to help. Well, so we got to kind of have a consistent message. But I agree with Trump. Why are we doing it all? Why are we supplying most of the funds to NATO and the UN? And by the way, where is the UN? People who are protesting the Iranian regime that get hurt and go into the local hospitals. Any doctor or nurse that helps those protesters, from what we're being told, is getting raped, murdered. Where's the UN? I thought we were against the atrocities that we saw with Nazi Germany. These things are happening. Why is it taking America and Israel to help free the people? Come on. The UN should be doing more. NATO should be doing more. But everyone's like, no, we don't want to tick off the Iranians, and we don't want to. You're ticking off the Iranian people by not helping them. So we'll see what happens. We don't have any current U.S.-Israeli airstrikes as of planned today. Those have scaled back. However, Iran has been launching drones, hitting Gulf countries. I know the UAE is not too happy with them, Saudi Arabia. So we'll see what happens. The last thing we want is World War III, but we do need the Iran regime to go. 1-877-Dr.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com. where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.